everyone. My guest is Vince Everett Ellison, and Vince is the author of The Iron Triangle Inside the Liberal Democrat Plan to Use Race to Divide Christians and America in Their Quest for Power and How We Can Defeat Them. Well, Vince, if you could come up with an answer to that question, you're going to get a huge, you should get the Nobel Prize, I'll tell you.
There you go, yeah, man. It's something, isn't it?
Now, that sort of what we're looking at right now is it looks to me to be a classic playbook. Now, I'm not in any way defending the terrible murder of George Floyd, and that is a problem. There is problems with racism in the police department, but it's very predictable in terms of grabbing onto an incident and using it indirectly, and in many cases directly, to try to pin it on Republicans and pin it on conservatives as a way of defeating them in elections. So how do we address that problem, Vince?
Well, in my book, I talk about how I came up with the Iron Triangle. Being a Black American and growing up on a cotton plantation in Tennessee, I grew up in the church. I worked in a prison for 5 years. And they told me that the reason why so many Black men were being locked up was because of the dirty, rich white Republicans. So I resigned my post and decided to work in the nonprofit arena. And I went into the Black community to try to help and stop putting Black men in jail. Found out one thing very, very interesting, that the problem was I saw no rich white Republicans down there. I saw a lot of Black Democrats, and mostly they were in the Iron Triangle, these three entities: most Black preachers, most Black politicians, and most Black civic organizers. And their job was specifically to just get the Black vote for the Democrat Party. In a story, point blank, period, by hook or by crook. And the Black preacher is really the most powerful part of this, because the Black church, as you know, is such an integral part of the community. And when he became compromised, he led Black Christians to the Democrat Party with a bunch of white liberals from New York and California paying them off and telling them what to do. So now, inevitably, as it always has happened, socialism is imploding on itself. It did it in Russia, it did it in Venezuela, it did it in Cuba, and it's doing it in the Black community right now. And the people said we've been lied to. And the people are you know, you have a free people that are under a police state, and these things just don't work together. So what you had with George Floyd, you had a visual representation of what the Democrat Party has been doing to the Black community since its inception in 1800. Yes. They destroyed his family. He was raised by a single mother. He was raised in a housing project, went to government schools, went to prison. They disarmed him, and then they killed him. That's it.
You know, let's do a little historical background here. The Black church is one of the great moral forces in the American Republic, has been since day one, going all the way back to the Puritan times and Phyllis Wheatley. And, you know, it's a very Calvinistic church. It's very much in the heart of American Christianity. And I think that it's, as a moral force, it actually helped and reestablished the white church in many ways.
Yeah.
But you say that the Black church, in the form of Black ministers who were paid off, had a corrupting element in the church. And I think that is so true. I mean, starting in the 1930s with Margaret Sanger and her Negro Project in Harlem.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
She set up an abortion mill and paid off Black ministers. You know, there's interesting quotes in her own diary which say, well, we can't just march in there and start to offer abortion and, you know, birth control. We have to do it through people who have legitimacy in that community, and so they don't see us. Mm-hmm. And so they went in and literally financially paid off ministers, bought them,
yes. Mm-hmm.
who advocate this in their churches. And that was the beginning of the corruption of the Black church. And ever since then, you have this real targeting on the part of predominantly white, predominantly upper-class, left-wing liberals to essentially infiltrate and undermine the entire Black community by corrupting the Black church. And that has had a very destructive influence on Black people, let alone the Black community as a political entity.
Yeah, man, I do a whole chapter on the black preacher and how he's been compromised and sold to the polls, how they paid the preachers on the first, the Sunday before the Tuesday election to take all their congregants to the polls in early voting. And they're paid by George Soros and his crew for each head that they bring up there. I talk about street money. You know about this like I do, how they just send people on the street on election day and pay them to bring people to the polls and have them vote Democrat. It's a terrible system. And one of the things that aggravate me about it, it's this old vaudevillian term that says 90% of any gig is just showing up. And the Republicans don't show up. This is a great opportunity for them to take what Jesus talked about in the story of the Good Samaritan and become the Good Samaritan. In the Good Samaritan, the man was jacked, knocked off, almost left to die. The people in his community, the rabbi and the priest, didn't help him. Who came? The person that he thought was his enemy. The Samaritan picked him up and helped him. Right now, black people believe that conservatives are their enemy. We're not. This is our opportunity to come in and pick them up and show them we're your friend, like the Samaritan did, and it brought people together. It's our opportunity now because they're burning down their own communities because right now they have two options in these elections, a liberal and an ultra liberal. That's it. They don't hear the conservative message at all. And so they don't know anything about school choice. And when you talk to them about the Second Amendment and how your right to keep and bear arms is an unalienable right given you by God, they go back to the civil rights movement. But Martin Luther King Jr. said, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the Negro is still not free. That was a lie. I was born free. God gave me my freedom. He said, we come to government to demand our freedom. I was born free. Government can't give me my freedom. They can't take it away. He said, we come for our unalienable rights. Government doesn't give you your unalienable rights. They come from God. They're irrevocable. They're non-transferable. They're unsellable. They're ours. But we've been told that we have to go to government for our unalienable rights, which include our freedom, our security, our property. And so and government can't give you that. So now the leftists are finally figuring out what you and I have known for all of our lives, and that is that they cannot give us these things, and now they're riding. They've been lying about it.
You're getting into the very nut of the philosophy of the American idea and the American Republic, which is that rights come from the Creator and not from the state. I mean, the Declaration of Independence says that rights come from the Creator, and those are inalienable, and those are the government. All the government does, they come from God, and God is the sovereign, and that we're given a limited grant of sovereignty as individuals, and then we set up a government to protect and defend and secure those rights, not the other way around. And that, the left has sold a bill of goods, and it's been bought by black and white alike, that somehow the government is the source of rights, that the government gives you privileges, and they give you this and they give you that. Now, I want to talk a little more about the history of how this happened. We talked about the black church and how the left has subverted and damaged the black church and its moral authority. They also subverted and damaged black education, particularly among children, with their social programs and their so-called frontier thinkers like John Dewey and others, who used means of education to transfer the ability of a young person to think cognitively and to become their own person as an independent, businessman or surfer or musician or whatever they want to do in life. And instead they crippled their minds with things like look, say, reading. They took phonics out of the school. They took God out of the school. They took the Constitution out of the school. They took the ability to think critically and think on your own, and they took philosophy out of the school. I mean, everything became essentially a propaganda mill for left-wing ideas, and the result was that children, particularly minority children who were more dependent on the big city schools, were very seriously hurt. And what added to that pain and that corrupting and crippling influence of this sort of school as using children as guinea pigs was programs that were started to put in place in the 1960s that encouraged women to get rid of their men and then have children out of wedlock, and more children, the more money. And that these were big government-run programs that were particularly targeted to the black community. I wrote a book on this called Acorn, the Takeover of America, where I talk about how groups like Acorn and these other groups were given this enormous latitude, really during the Nixon administration,
Mm.
to do things like get people on welfare, fraudulent voter rolls, flood the system. It's the
Right.
Cloward-Piven method of
Mm-hmm.
completely flooding the system until it implodes.
Mm-hmm.
And programs that really ultimately led, along with anti-business attitudes and high taxes, to a destruction of business opportunities, particularly in minority neighborhoods where you had single parent families and you had young men who were then unemployed. And, you had an anti-business administration, usually most often Democrat. And the result was social unrest and poverty. Then you introduce drugs and
Mm-hmm.
and you get lenient on crime. And before you know it, you have a destruction of the community. And these are all leftist programs. So, if we want to talk today about racism in this country, let's take a look at the racist attitudes and the racist programs who were de facto, whether they were well-meaning or not. And I don't think they were actually.
Mm-hmm. I don't think so
Um,
either.
no, they were self-serving, and they put a lot of people, created these massive bureaucracies where they staffed predominantly white people on payrolls, is what they did. And they used black people increasingly as guinea pigs as they made them more dependent. So now we have this situation where you've got alienated young men who don't have the necessary stability in their life since they didn't have a father-headed household. And so the last resort and the last group that actually is there to try to help is the police. Now,
Mm.
again, I'm
Right.
not saying there aren't bad cops. This guy up in Minnesota was a pretty bad guy. I mean, that looks, at least from what I can tell. But, when you have people who are unemployed and who are then prone to criminality, you have to have police go in and defend the 99% of people who are trying to get on with their lives and who get to work, have children. There was a case in Boston where I lived where a young black girl was shot dead sitting on the stoop of her house
Mm.
because she got caught in a crossfire between two drug gangs.
Mm-hmm.
That's really that's where, to my opinion, Black Lives Matter. I mean, the police were not there. They need to be there. They need to stop this kind of criminality. And it's not an easy job. It's a dangerous job. So while I recognize that there are very bad cops, I generally support what they're trying to do. I mean, they're trying to secure an area so people can start to get on with their lives and begin to get into business and start to achieve something. You can't do that when there's drug gangs shooting.
Well, but Black lives only matter when white men take them. And I'm a staunch believer in the Constitution and in our unalienable rights. I
Right.
believe that we need a police force, no doubt. I think that the police force, but America was not designed to be a police state where the police are supposed to provide security for the people. Even the Supreme Court has ruled that you can't even sue the police if they don't provide security. Your security is your responsibility. And what they've done in those areas is they have violated the Second Amendment rights of everybody there to secure their own person, property, and possessions. They told the people in the 90s, "Hey, we got to get these illegal guns off the street, so we're going to start licensing gun owners." And the people, "Oh, good idea." And then they started making it hard to get the license, and the criminals still had the guns. So,
Mhm.
so they had to hire the police because everything went crazy. So now, what I say is, you should stop violating the rights of people to defend themselves. Use the police for what they are supposed to be for. They are an investigative and a apprehension unit of the government. They will tell you that they only stop about 3 or 4% of the crime in the city. When they come up, the crime's been committed. Murder has already been committed. The theft has been committed. The drugs have already been sold. So the people can defend themselves if they are allowed to. But the government, the same Democrats we talking about, the same leftists, have disarmed the population, and they've allowed the criminals to be armed. And the police, because they're not clairvoyant, can't be there when somebody kicks your door in at 3 o'clock in the morning. They can't be there. They couldn't have. They couldn't be. They can't protect the property of all. If police protected people, Detroit, Chicago, and LA would be the safest places in America. But they're not. The safest places in America are the places where people are armed and can defend themselves. And the police will then come and clean up the mess when it's over with, which is what they do anyway. So
That's right.
when you go into a big city like Chicago, I would say, let us make sure that the police do their investigative services very well, keep SWAT, and the special services just in case something goes down, and make sure that they can apprehend and put jokers in jail. But make sure every citizen, every law-abiding citizen can defend their family, can defend their property, defend themselves, so that they are not accosted, assaulted. And we saw also when these riots happened, we saw what the government will do. They told the police to stand down, and they
That's right.
allowed these hoodlums to kick in doors, destroy property, while they did nothing. Every argument, if anything came good out of this riot, every argument against the Second Amendment has been obliterated. Why do I need an AK-47? You know now why I need one. Why do I need a 30 bullet clip in my gun? Now you know. Because you allow 100 people to come in front of my house, kick in the door, and loot my store. That's why I need it. Because I saw that when it came down to it, you would not protect me. And that's who these leftists are. They want to disarm you so they can then send in their people to do to you what they want to do to you. And if we don't wake up to it very, very soon, and look, and the one thing we know about the problem, what is the solution? The solution is this. The Christian community and the people of faith, Jewish and Muslim, are the only people that have a legitimate and a spiritual reason to want to go down there and help these people. Black, white, who's ever down there. And we have to stop dealing with government is not going to do it. We have to stop asking government to do something that we're supposed to do. Jesus Christ told us to evangelize. He told us to go. He sent his disciples out and told them to go. Back when Christianity first started, they were sending priests into jungles to convert people and bring them back. We have Christians that are trapped in these areas being assaulted by an anti-Christian liberal left that's destroying them. We should go build the schools. We should go help these people get jobs. It's our job. And we're asking government to do something that they will not do and they've never done. So the book tells you how Christians, Jews, Muslims can talk to the ones that are trapped, and how we can go back there and grab our people and we can help secure them and tell the government, get out the way. This is our family. We'll do it. Step aside.
There you go. All right, my guest is Vince Everett Ellison. The book is The Iron Triangle: Inside the Liberal Democrat Plan to Use Race to Divide Christians in America in Their Quest for Power and How We Can Defeat Them. Vince, there's talk. The President Trump is criticized for holding the rally in Tulsa because it's the anniversary of the destruction of the Black Wall Street in Tulsa. I think one of the little elements of history that should be remembered about that is that the reason the Black community was attacked in Tulsa is because they wanted to disarm them. They had weapons, and now
there you go.
with all this talk about defunding police and ending police departments, you've got this massive surge of people, law-abiding people, and I would argue particularly in the Black community, getting guns, and rightfully, you have to defend yourself. I mean, if they're going to pull back on police efforts, and meanwhile, you've got President Trump who says that we should expand police efforts, not in terms of the way Obama did it, which was to give police departments military-grade hardware so they could start throwing bombs at people, which is what they did in Ferguson, Missouri. But in terms of bringing in social workers, bringing in better training, and stuff that actually will make a difference and could mean something. But that brings me to the topic of now. Why is today and I'm saying this, by the way, as a Jew who can say the same thing about Jews, why is the Black community so liberal and so democratic in their voting?
It started with slavery, and that the slave masters were Democrats. The old Confederacy, all of them were Democrats.
Yes.
And they started the Civil War to keep slavery. After Reconstruction, they got their power back, and after years and years of being beat down, we developed a cognitive dissonance, a Stockholm syndrome, where you start to identify with your oppressor. And people think that Black people hated the white people that they lived with back in the South. They didn't. They fought to integrate them, great with them, if you can recall. They fought to sit beside them in lunch counters and in toilets and water fountains. They fought to have their children go to their schools. You don't do this if you hate people, okay? You do this because you admire and you love them. So if we will fight to integrate to sit beside them on toilets, to drink water from the same water fountain, to go to schools with them. Of course, when the time came to vote, we voted for their party. It was as simple as that, and nobody saw it coming. The Republicans were just as shocked because the white Democrats even thought that if blacks ever got a chance to vote again, they were going to do what they did in the 1870s. They were going to vote Republican, and that's why they kept us from voting. An old white Democrat told me, if we had known y'all was going to vote 80% Democrat, we would let you vote 50 years earlier.
Right,
So
right. No, I can.
Yeah, so we started voting for them because of the cognitive dissonance, the Stockholm syndrome, and then it became orbital. When we got the right to vote, the same white Democrats that ran the party back then chose the black people who were going to run as Democrats. And of course, they got their old house Negroes. They weren't going to get Malcolm X to run on the Democrat ticket. They went and got the black people they were comfortable with. And these black people then told the black people in their congregations, the preachers and all of them, told them, y'all vote Democrat because you're voting for us. And as the conservative white people said, look, this Democratic Party has gone insane with the feminism and the liberalism. They skewed more to the Republican side, but the blacks stayed because they were still brainwashed to believe that the Democrats were the Democrats, period. Forget ideology. Forget where you stand on issues. The master votes Democrat. And George Wallace died a Democrat. Lester Maddox died a Democrat. Orville Favors, all those old Democrats. They didn't say, the only one that switched was Strom Thurmond. And when he switched, they told him all that racism you were doing when you were a Dixiecrat, it has to go. And it stopped. And Strom Thurmond never did a racist thing after becoming a Republican. But those old Southern Dixiecrats from Fritz Hollins to Eastman, all of them, they kept doing the same thing they'd always done. And black people still voted for them because of Stockholm Syndrome, cognitive dissonance, and being told what to do by the Iron Triangle.
You know, the last Republican president to get a large polarity of black votes was Eisenhower. And since then, they've really walked very carefully in the Democrat Party. I mean, I think that Donald Trump did better than Mitt Romney, I believe. I think he got about 9 or 10%, maybe 12%. And recently, he's up in the polls with black people. I mean, I think particularly younger black men. I think it was like 30%. Which is a huge threat to the Democrat Party establishment. So they're trotting out this whole race conflict argument. I mean, when there's no real racism, the Jim Crow is gone. You know, I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist at all, but you have major strides and you've got a major weakening of the whole racist paradigm on all sides. So they start taking out a microscope and they're going to look and say, aha, you said this. You did this in 1963, and you made reference to urban. That's a secret code word for black people, and and this kind of stuff. And they apply that particular line of thinking, which, by the way, started at Harvard University with Charles Pierce. He was a professor. He developed this whole theory of microaggression.
Yeah.
They start working that stuff only to people that are not Democrats, only to people. Never mind the fact that Joe Biden was a segregationist. I mean, that's out the window, right? I mean, it's only done to. It's very selective and it's very situational. And they're going to be doing that in a big way. We know this. We're never going to hear the end of it between now and Election Day. Are black people going to fall for that again?
Well, Donald Trump is the first Republican to talk to the black community since Abraham Lincoln went to Richmond in 1865. I mean, he's jumped over the media, and he's going to Twitter, he's going to Facebook, he's using Instagram, he's using other means to talk to the black population. As you notice, whenever Donald Trump gets up, he tells the black community what he's doing for them specifically, and they hear it. No other Republican president has ever done it. No other Republican candidate has ever done it. They only talk about America in generalities.
Right.
Donald Trump, like a good salesman, will look at you and say, this is how this will help you. And then you can understand it. And this is why he's so effective. And this is why I'm so upset with the GOP. The RNC and the NRCC will not send a dime down there to help these black candidates. These candidates that are running in these majority black districts, whether it be black or white, the RNC and the NRCC will give them a penance compared to what the Democrats will give James Clyburn and Mrs. and Congress Lady Bass and all the rest of these black Democrats. They get millions of dollars, millions. And because of that, the black community will never hear the conservative message coming from a candidate. They'll only hear an ultra liberal and a liberal. That's all they're here. They never have the option to vote for a good Republican candidate. So Donald Trump is going to jump over them, and they'll probably vote for Trump, but they're not going to vote for the person running for Congress because he might not even be down there, you know?
Right.
So
Well,
Trump is going to.
Yeah. It should be noted that there were more blacks running as Republicans this time than Democrats, across the country. And it's, the fact that the RNCC is not supporting that's a disgrace. That's terrible.
Isn't it? Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, it's such a wasted opportunity, and it's so short-sighted. I mean, they've got the money to do this. And Donald Trump is a natural president for minority communities across the board. And, he specifically for the black community, he's got rid of some of those horrendous laws put in place during the Clinton years that was putting innocent men in prison for minor crimes. Yeah. And the result was that 10,000 prisoners were released, 90% of whom were black men. He's the first president to consistently and as a matter of program fund historically black universities. Mm-hmm. He's bringing back, entrepreneurialism and holding the line on taxes so that black businesses can get into business and start to expand, as opposed to the left-wing shock troops that are going in to neighborhoods and looting black businesses and burning them and killing black people. So to my way of thinking, he's a natural for the black communities. In a way, you could say he's America's first black president.
Well, he is, and what he's doing, he's not using government to stop black people anymore.
Right.
The government has been stopping them. He says, okay, you have a community. Now, what does government do? They'll allow tons of illegals to come down and compete for wages, compete for space in public education, compete for services from government, the hospitals, food stamps, things like that. And what does that do? It hurts crime, brain drugs. That hurts the community. Why? Because the government is doing it. They will set up a school down there. They'll pay the teachers large salaries, like in D.C., the average school teacher makes close to $100,000 a year. Have the worst public education system in the whole damn nation. Now, but they want more money. And the Democrats give it to them. But Trump is going to say, no, we're going to free them up. And we're going to give you an opportunity to educate your own children. He says that, okay, the government is not allowing you to protect yourself. It's not that you don't want to. It's not that you can't. The government has made it illegal for you to even protect your property and yourself. And you can have nothing in a community if you do not have security. You can't have commerce. You can't have education. You can't have a family. You can't have real estate. You can't have a store. Nothing if there's not security. And the government has made it illegal. The Democrat government have made it illegal for these people to even protect themselves, and they make it hard for you to even praise your God. You can't pray in school.
They're
taking Bibles out of old folks' homes. They're making it everything that's needed to keep a society together. They have pulled out of these places, and they're making it more and more difficult. Trump is saying, I cannot save you, but I'm going to stopping you from saving yourself. Dr. Martin Luther King, Larry King was asked what was his favorite interview of all time. He said Martin Luther King Jr. 1964. They asked him what was going on. He said King was trying to integrate this hotel down in Tallahassee. And when the police came to arrest him, the officer asked him, boy, what do you want? And King said, I want my dignity. Now, see, I hate that story because it implies that you can get your dignity from another man.
Right.
Your dignity comes from God and you have it. It's already yours. You don't ask another man for your dignity. He can't take it from me. Muhammad Ali said, if I fail, if I succeed, at least I've lived as I believe, no matter what you take from me. You can't take away my dignity. But we have told our people that we have to go to white America for our dignity. And here's the sad thing. White America can't give it to you.
Of course. Nobody can.
Say, no. It's you have to own it. You have to exercise it. It's yours. And if anything comes out of this, I hope they don't think that Donald Trump can save them. Donald Trump can only say, look, man, I can only stop stopping you. You heard the old saying, you can take a horse to water, right? But you can't make him drink.
They can help them save themselves. I mean, just like anyone else, we all want the same things. We want to be left alone so we could be free. We want
Yeah.
to be able to have our businesses to determine our own futures. We don't want to have the government come in like the great administrator, predominantly white, predominantly liberal,
Yeah.
saving us. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, of course, with the liberal Democrats, it's all about symbolism. There's nothing actually there. They offer the black community two things only: abortion and welfare. What they're doing
Yes.
now is they're offering symbolism like bowing and kneeling, which to
Yeah.
me is
Yeah.
un-American. You know, we don't bow. I mean, my Jewish faith tells me that I don't bow to anyone but God. You
Thank
know,
you.
and I don't kneel to anyone but God. I mean,
Right.
that's the story of Ezra, of Mordecai and Esther
Mm-hmm.
that we tell in
Mm-hmm.
Purim.
Yeah.
It was the
Yeah.
government who stepped out, Haman, the dictator, and he said, "You have to bow to me." And
Uh-huh.
Mordecai said, "No, I only bow to God. I don't bow to anyone but God." And that's what started the whole
That's not
conflict
right.
there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where I am with this.
You're exactly. I also call it the Daniel test. How they set up Daniel to say, "Hey, tell Daniel that he had to pray to you, and if well, don't not Daniel, but tell the people that if they do not pray to you during this month, you're gonna still throw them into the lion's den." And so they got Daniel. If Daniel prays to him, then Daniel loses God. If Daniel doesn't, then the government takes Daniel's life. So Daniel has a conundrum, and Daniel decides to not pray and stick with his God. And they put him in the lion's den. You know the rest of the story. He
Of
survives it.
course.
They
Yeah,
they want to put us in that conundrum that you either do what we say and leave your God, or leave your God and then you're condemned. And that's what they do to people of faith every single solitary day. And we're fighting to stop that. And we, people of faith, need to go back down there and we need to save these people that are struggling for everything, man. I mean, they want the same things we want, but they really believe. They believe that people like you and I think that we're better than they are,
right.
that we don't care about them, that if we come down there, they're going to look at us and say, "What y'all doing down here?" Because we never come. See, but the
Right.
dope deal is there. Greasy Al Sharpton is there. Jesse Jackson is there. All the malcontents, all the people that are saying it's somebody else's problem. You are where you are because they hate you. You are where they are because you're a victim. And if a person believes he is a victim, he will become a victimizer. I am a Christian, an heir of Jesus Christ. How can I be a victim? How can I
Right.
believe that someone believes
Yeah.
that they're superior to me? This is why my life is successful and my family's life is successful. I say this: racism is like the weather and it's like disease. You cannot control it. So that's why we build houses, right? To
That's right.
control,
You get
to
on with your
build a
life.
shelter, to build a shelter against it. We inoculate ourselves because we can't control disease, but we can control our bodies. So what do we do with racism? You, whatever your faith, you practice it. Find yourself, find yourself a vocation and become so prolific at it that the color of your skin does not matter. If you're a good HVAC man or if you're a good mechanic or a good cook, we don't care the color of your skin, do we? Your
Right.
services are good, we're going to buy it. And then arm yourself. Arm yourself with knowledge and arm yourself with a gun. So if anyone comes to try to take your rights away, you put them down. If anyone tries to outsmart you, you can use your brain. Do those three things, and racism has no control over you whatsoever. You've inoculated yourself and you built a shelter against it. And that's what I tell black people. It's not you
Mhm.
trying to control racists, telling people to stop being racist. A racist is an idiot. He's a stupid person. I'm not going to even spend we spend too much time arguing and fighting with hogs. And that's why we remain in the mud. We have to be above these people. And we have to look at them and say, "Look, I'm superior to you." No, you're not. And just walk on. I'm not
Exactly.
concerned about how you view me. I'm concerned about how God views me. I'm not concerned about how you think of me. As long as you don't put your hands on me and slander me, we're okay. This is the
There you
message.
go.
We have to start teaching people again how to be free and what is good and what is right. The affirmation of man is nothing. The affirmation of God is everything. And that's who you try to satisfy.
Vince, it's very inspiring talking with you. I must say, let my listeners and viewers know where they can get your excellent book.
You can go to my website, irontrianglebook.com. Irontrianglebook.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Vince E. Ellison. And I'm on Facebook. Just put in my name and you'll see me. But go to irontrianglebook.com. I have blogs there. I have excerpts from the book. I have a lot of the op-eds and articles that I've written also there. I have my appearances, me being on other talk shows. You'll enjoy it, but you can use it as a primer and as a conversation starter. Because if you're a white conservative that wants to talk to a black person that might be a liberal, you can pull out your iPhone and show them my website. You can pull out my book and say, now what about this? This guy's a black man born on a cotton plantation. And when we talk privately, I'll tell you about some of the things that my family has done. My wife is an attorney. My brother-in-law went to West Point. My brother's the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world. My sisters all graduated college, and we all came out of a cotton field. Because in America, you can do everything. You bring good people around you, black and white. Push bad people away, black and white. Control your circle. Pray to your God, and feel that you are an American and that you're above all of this foolishness.
There you go. Vince Ellison, I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, Charles. I enjoyed it, man. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Thank you very much. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right, brother. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.